Hey everyone, Zach here. It's day number whatever of the quarantine here in Texas, and the cravings are starting to set in. Cravings for what, you might ask? Well, this Cincinnati boy is hankering for some Skyline Chili. And normally, under normal conditions, it's not that hard to satiate that desire, because I can just head down to Kroger. And they've got the cans, usually, over by the chili, or they've got the, what I consider to be the far superior product, the frozen Skyline Chili, in the frozen department next to some of the other novelty items, such as the frozen White Castle hamburgers. Where we are right now in the situation is that all the other people who have a similar affection for Skyline Chili have already gone to Kroger, and they've already cleaned out all the stock, and there is none to be had, and believe me, I've looked. So I don't expect the supply chain has a high priority for Skyline Chili. So I'm reduced to one of two options. Either I can make do with this Kroger brand chili sauce. Ingredients include beans, beef fat, tomatoes, mustard, brown sugar, which may be acceptable in Michigan, but not in Ohio, certainly not in Cincinnati. So I'm going to save that until we're really to the point where we're about to eat cats and dogs. Instead, I'm going to try to make do with the ingredients I've got with me, or available to me, that are left at Kroger, and make my own Skyline from scratch. There's a bit of a wrinkle there. So you go online and you look for different sort of recipes that people have come up with, and they all are basically about the same. So there's a lot of meat involved, there's a lot of water involved, and there's a lot of spices involved. But the particulars is a little bit different from recipe to recipe. So I've gone through a handful of these and looked at some of these. And there are some similarities. Almost everybody seems to agree that a teaspoon of cumin helps the medicine go down. But the particulars are a little bit different, including whether or not you actually brown the meat initially, which I've never done. And I've made chili at home using some of the Skyline spice packets that they have available. And the directions never say to brown the meat ahead of time, which is odd to me. The other thing that's really odd is that all these call for adding chopped onions into the chili. I've never done that. Never seen that done. So what I'm going to do with these is just sort of forget about them. And instead I did something much more nerdy and possibly much more expected for anybody that knows me. I went through all the recipes, and I sort of wrote down all the ingredients that they had listed out, and by amount. And I sort of compared across all the different recipes to figure out what exactly they're telling me to do, and then I just sort of made my own call, what I'm actually going to be doing, given the available ingredients to me. The one thing right off the bat, and I know this is a big blow for the whole enterprise, but the primary ingredient is ground beef. Fortunately, we're out of ground beef around here. There was plenty of ground turkey. So I did get a big 3-pound container of ground turkey. I've actually made Skyline Chili in the past with ground turkey when I've been sort of forced to, given the circumstances. It's not terrible. It's not ideal, but then again, nothing about the situation is ideal. So I'm just going to pretend, and I hope that you pretend along with me in the land of make-believe, that this ground turkey is actually ground beef. The other caveat, I do have 3 whole pounds of it. I've earmarked it all for chili, because whatever comes out of this process at the end, I'm going to be freezing and storing. Even if it tastes awful, it is still food, and I don't think now is the time to be lightheartedly tossing stuff into the trash. So I'm dedicated to this enterprise. So all the other recipes, almost all the other recipes, assume that you're using 2 pounds of meat. I'm using 3 pounds of meat, so I'm just going to sort of ratchet up the other ingredients to compensate. There is a bit of a difference between some of these recipes in terms of whether they call for water, like boiling the meat in water, or boiling it in beef stock. Boy, I wish I had some beef stock with me now to get that turkey a little bit more beefy in flavor. Unfortunately, I don't, so I'm just going to make do with water. Onions I've already mentioned. I think that's irrelevant. I do have some dried minced onions that I might throw in there just to get a little bit of oniony flavor into it. But I can't imagine like cutting up fresh onions and putting them in this stuff, because that's just not how it's done. By the way, I used to work at a Skyline Chili in Cincinnati, or Mason, Westchester, whatever you. Escort Drive was the location. Spent many an hour there during high school, as well as the one on Western Row, just for the record. So I have a little bit of an understanding. I'm not exactly king of the steam table, nor was I, but I knew my way around it. One other difference, tomato sauce versus tomato paste. I do have both, but I tend to think that tomato paste is probably the right way to go. I've got double concentrated tomato paste, so we'll all take a step back once we're actually using this so we don't, suffer any ill effects. But I'm going to be using 8 ounces of that, or at least my best approximation of 8 ounces, given the double concentrated nature of it. Vinegar, most of the recipes I saw say apple cider vinegar. I don't have any of that fancy stuff. I've got regular distilled white vinegar, which I hope will be sufficient. I will try and eat an apple while I'm adding that in, and hopefully that makes a difference. Worcestershire sauce. That's something I've never contemplated going into Skyline Chili, but what the hell, I like Worcestershire sauce. It's got a whole mixture of all these different flavors, and I figure some of them ought to be helpful. Garlic, so I'm going to put in 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I'm sorry, 3 tablespoons of vinegar, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. Let's not mix those up. Garlic, cloves, minced, powdered, whatever. There's lots of different recipes that, if I had fresh garlic, I would definitely be using it. I've got the powdered stuff. I'll make do with, I think 2 teaspoons is what I resolved on that. Unsweetened chocolate. This is the least secret about Skyline Chili. Anybody that knows any trivia at all about Skyline Chili, or Cincinnati Chili, if you want to call it that, knows that, yes, did you know there's actually chocolate inside Skyline Chili? Yes, indeed there is, and cinnamon. Regular baking unsweetened chocolate is what you want to use. The Ghirardelli was on sale, so I went ahead and got that, treat yourself while you can. I'm going to use a full ounce. I believe that's a whole square of the stuff. And I will try not to taste it, because I learned that lesson when I was 5. Chili powder. It is chili after all, so we will be using chili powder. This is the good Kroger brand chili powder, standard stuff. Quarter cup of that would be in the standard recipes. I'm dialing it up, so I'm going to go up to 6 tablespoons, which is about a quarter cup plus another half of that. Salt, a teaspoon. Cumin, as I mentioned, everyone wants a teaspoon of cumin in it. I'm going to ratchet it up to a teaspoon and a half. Again, because of the increased meat. Also, I'm kind of hoping that the spices make up for the fact that it's not going to be beefy in flavor. I hope that kind of covers that up a little bit. So 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, cayenne pepper. Now, one of the differences between Skyline Chili and some of the other chilies that are out there is the spiciness. And that's something that I've just gotten used to. In my mind, Cincinnati Chili should be spicy like Skyline. I think Skyline does a good job of getting it just spicy enough to let you know that there's something in there, but not enough that it's going to do damage to you. So maybe a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper will go in that. Cloves, allspice. It helps. So one of the things that people notice typically about Skyline Chili is that it's sweet, especially compared to Texas style chili. And the cloves and the allspice berries help give it that sweet flavor profile. So I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of the cloves and I wish I had ground allspice. I don't. I've got the berries, so I'm going to throw in 5 berries into the mix and just sort of fish them out later. Bay leaf. A number of recipes called for bay leaves. Not all of them. Tossing one in there. That's one of those other things that's sort of like Worcestershire. It's a good flavor, and whenever I'm making a soup or a stew, I always throw some bay leaves in there. I don't know that there's any particular flavor that I'm missing if I don't have a bay leaf in there, but I figure, it'll do some good, maybe, cover up for some other mistakes I might be making. And then just a little pinch of black pepper. One of the recipes call for that. So, what the hell? I'm going to toss it in there. It sounds good to me. All right, let's get started. All right, so to execute this particular recipe, I'm going to be using my trusty Instant Pot and the Instant Pot. I've gotten really used to using it for soups and stews and sauces in general. It works really, really well whenever I do. And frankly, I don't have a bigger saucepan to use on the stove, so it's going to be this or nothing. So we're going to see how this goes. First off is the water. So I'm measuring 5 cups. So that's this guy is 2. So this is 2.5 of these things here. 1, 2, and a half. All right, so the next question is, do I just simply let the water boil and then put in the meat and let the meat cook? Or do I spice up the water first? That is, get all the spices, all the flavors as much as possible in the water so that when you put the meat in and it starts to cook, it starts to absorb some of the spiciness. I like the second idea better, so that's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to put in the tomato paste. Again, this is double concentrated. So my intent is to put in 8 ounces of the paste. This is double concentrated, so I would then put in 4 ounces. And the total amount of the container is 5.3 ounces. So I will be putting about 80% of this tube, or most of it. Capital M most. It's got one of those nice little sealed tops there, and I'm going to use the lid on the inside to puncture that. And now we've got that tomatoey goodness, and it goes into the pot. Squirt, squirt, squirt. And I'm just sort of doing it toothpaste style. This is the apocalypse. We don't have time to do things properly all the time. And that's probably good. It's been depleted to a significant degree. I'll come back later and maybe flatten this out a little bit, do it up proper, and save the rest for something else. Okay. Now let's stir that up a little bit. All right. All that hard work concentrated in this, and now I've just gone and made it all watery again. All right. There we go. It's chocolate time. Has there ever been any chili that was made with such fancy chocolate? I don't know. Probably. In heaven. All right. So this is, the total amount of this bar is 4 ounces. I want 1, because I'm not doing any half measure here, I can tell you that. Whatever I've got, I'm going to use to my utmost. So let's see what this guy has. 8 total squares, which means I'm going to break off 2 of them. And these just go in the pot. Plop and plop. I'm going to wrap this chocolate up. I'm going to tell myself that I'm not going to try to eat it later and disgust myself. And save it for some, I don't know, maybe pudding that I'll never make. All right, let's take a look at this right now because you can see the chocolate is starting to melt in here. A little swirl. Ooh, yeah, it's melting up against the sides. And little swirls of. Oh, look at that boy! He's almost gone. That's high quality chocolate right there. All right, so now we're getting a color that's sort of like a, I don't know, like a brownish red something. The steam's coming off of it, and that means the Instant Pot is doing its job. It's getting nice and warm. It smells like a chocolatey tomato, to be honest, which I guess is what I would expect. All right, on to the next step. All right, now we're gonna do the spices. So let's see. This is chili after all. Let's go ahead and add the chili powder first. This is a brand new container of chili powder, never been used. So I've got to violate the protective measures to keep it fresh for my safety. All right. It's good stuff. All right, where's my tablespoons at? There we go. So what did I say I was going to do? I said I was going to do 6 tablespoons of this stuff. Nice, healthy, heaping tablespoons is what I like to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that's the chili powder done. Now let's stir that up a little bit. Oh yeah, now we're getting somewhere. I can smell that's. We're in the neighborhood of chili now. I can tell. Still a ways to go. All right, chili powder done. All right, it's cinnamon time. 1 1/2 teaspoons. This is my half teaspoon measure. Cinnamon. And I'm gonna. Don't tell anybody I'm doing this, but I'm just gonna put a little bit in there because I like it. I still don't believe it's Skyline, but I think it's going there. All right, garlic powder time. I'm in the unfortunate position of only having powder available to me. I'll make the best of it. 2 teaspoons. I got nobody coming over, so what the heck. A little bit extra of that too. Getting there. All right, it's cumin time. I've got this Fiesta brand, local, based out of San Antonio. That's where all the good stuff comes from. All right, this is another 1 1/2. Cumin is one of those things where you got to really develop an appreciation for it. It does so much in so many different types of foods. It's one of those essential things in chili. If you're not making chili with cumin, you're just not making chili. I'm sorry. It might make something good, something tasty, but it's not chili if it doesn't have cumin in it. Oh yeah, now it's got the cumin in it. Oh yeah, we're making progress. I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, but I'm going to make sure that that's a nice heaping teaspoon of cloves. A little bit of cloves goes a long way, and you learn that lesson, especially when you're baking around Christmas time. Put it out in your pumpkin pie. It's not the same without it, but boy, you can really go too far with the cloves. And the allspice berries, as I said, I don't have the ground stuff, and I don't want to grind up berries on my own, so I'm just going to take 5 good-sized berries and let them in. And hope they have a good time. Bay leaf time. In goes 1. And don't tell anybody I put this one in. Cayenne pepper time. For that little bit of bite. I'm just gonna. There. Ooh, I'm starting to smell it now. Yeah, oh yeah. I'm getting there. So I do have a little bit of this dried minced onion. I am gonna go ahead and sprinkle some in. I have no real way of measuring this, but whatever I feel like is reasonable. This is about maybe 1.5 teaspoons. That'll give it a little bit of, boy, that's that White Castle smell in there now. So, for the spice mix, the only thing left is salt and pepper. I got some of this Celtic sea salt. I don't even remember where I got it from, but I'm gonna put in a nice heaping teaspoon. And then for the black pepper, the suggestion was 1/8 teaspoon. I'm not doing that. I'm just sort of going to shake it in until I decide that I'm going to stop. It's definitely in the ballpark. All right, the last couple items, now that we're done with the spices, is the vinegar and the Worcestershire sauce. So 3 tablespoons of vinegar. And 2 teaspoons of all natural Lee and Perrins, the original Worcestershire sauce, which comes out in a tiny, tiny little drip because a little bit of it goes a long way. I have no idea what this is doing to the chili, but I hope it does something good. Okay, I can smell that acid coming up off of it. It's close. All right, now it's meat time. So I'm gonna turn this heat back on the spice water mixture to get it nice and boiling, and I'm gonna put the meat in and mix it up as best as I can so that it all like cooks and breaks up in little tiny bits and chunks. We have here the sacrificial bird, 3 pounds of fresh ground turkey from the good folks at Kroger. The heat back on, and then just put little bits of it in. Definitely don't want to put the whole chunk in it the whole time because you want it to, the meat needs to be able to separate out as it cooks. So sort of encourage it not to cook in a big brick, which would be wonderful. Okay, that is everything. So now I'm just gonna mix up a little bit more and let it start to cook through, and then I'll try to break it up a little bit. So we are moving along here, and I'm very pleased to see that the consistency of whatever this substance is that I'm concocting here does in fact appear to be chili. So the meat as it cooks browns naturally, and the overall color of the whole mixture is starting to become much more brown than it was red. So I'm very encouraged by that. I'm going to let the heat stay on and try to cook this through, although, I don't think I will actually need to make any extra effort to try to mix this up, because it seems like as I'm stirring this around, the meat's breaking up on its own. So I think I'm doing this the right way. At least it appears to be the right way at this moment. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Whoa, wow, yeah. I'm definitely picking up that Skyline flavor. At this point, most of the recipes want me to just sort of let it cook at a low boil for an hour. And let it thicken up. Fortunately, I've got an Instant Pot, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put the top on the pot, lock it in, and I'm going to set it for the soup setting. I'm not making stew, so I'm not going to have it run for 2 hours. I think once it gets up to temperature, maybe 15 minutes ought to do it. Oh, and 15 minutes on the clock. So while I'm waiting for the chili to cook, if I was actually in Ohio at this point, I would have access to as many oyster crackers as I could stuff in my mouth. I suppose in a pinch any cracker would do. In this instance, the closest thing I have is matzo wafers, which is going to have to do. Once upon a time, I went to a church that did their communion this way. It was broken up bits of matzah for the authentic, I don't know, whatever, experience of it. I don't know exactly what sort of hot sauce Skyline has, but they've got oyster crackers and they got hot sauce there. I got Frank's, so I'm going to put a single dot of Frank's over each little bit of the cracker. I was in Ohio last year and I went to a Skyline with some folks and I started doing that to the oyster crackers and they said, "Oh, you must be from Cincinnati," because they saw me putting a single dot of hot sauce on the oyster crackers and eating it. I said, "Yes, I am." I don't know why that marks me out as a Cincinnatian. I don't know why Cincinnatians do that at Skyline. I don't know what sense it makes. All I know is that at one point I started seeing people do it and I tried it and I liked it and I keep doing it. So let's see how this works. You know, it's okay. I kind of feel like I'm ditching a bunch of Egyptians behind me at this point, but this is okay too. I think maybe I'll stay put. Now I have to grapple with another problem that I'm being faced with right now. Problem number one, I'm down to my last bottle of Montgomery Inn barbecue sauce. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get another one, so I'm going to put this in my strategic reserve for now. Other problem, one of the first things that people started to loot once they started hitting the grocery stores in full force was the spaghetti. Skyline Chili can come in two primary physical forms. One being ladled on top of a bed of spaghetti, the other being on top of a hot dog in the form of a cheese coney. I'm set with the cheese conies. I've got hot dogs and buns and stuff, but the spaghetti is one thing that I did not get out of country with that before before the curtain fell. That being said, Italian cuisine is not the only type of cuisine that utilizes pasta. So when I saw that aisle was completely gone, I headed over to the Asian food section, and I saw that there was a whole bunch of Japanese-style wheat pasta that remain. Now this stuff is untested by me. It's somen noodles. I don't know exactly what the appropriate application of this particular food stuff is. The directions on the back suggest that it's something somewhat ramen-like. Put it in a nice big soup bowl with some meat and some vegetables and a fried egg and some chopsticks. On any other day that sounds fantastic, but today I want Skyline. And Skyline just isn't the same unless you have it over spaghetti, in my opinion. So I'm going to give this a shot. All right, so the magic of the Instant Pot is at play right now, and I can hear that steam sneaking out of the catch here, and I can see it, and boy, let me tell you, I can smell it too. It's smelling good. Now, at some point the pressure inside will be so much that it actually pushes this little red button, which you should not touch, by the way. This little red button comes up and completely stops all the steam from escaping, and that allows the pressure inside to increase. As the pressure inside increases, the temperature can go up beyond the boiling point, according to Boyle's law, of course, which, as we all know, cooks things a lot faster, which is why it's called instant, even though it's not technically instant. It does take a little while to get the pressure up, but you can see it getting up there, and we're going to see that little button pop up. Lets us know that it's getting really excited. Oh, it's wiggling. Boy, it wants to get there so bad. Get there. Get there. Boy, this is taking a long time. Oh, and we're up. We made it. All right, now the pressure's going to increase and it's going to cook. And right now I'm going to try to cook this pasta and try to make it sort of a passable spaghetti something. While the Instant Pot is busy, I'm going to use the other biggest saucepan that I have, which should be enough for this. I'm just going to treat it like I would treat any other sort of dry pasta. Fill this up with water. Snag another piece of matzah. And salt. Did I get the unsalted one? Ugh, that was stupid. Yeah. All right. That should be plain, as you can see. And there we go on the burner. Now, while the water is boiling, I will get out the onion. One simple white onion. And I will cut this up because the way I prefer my Skyline on spaghetti is there's three different, technically four different ways in which it can be prepared. There's the quintessential three-way, so named because it consists of spaghetti, which is 1, chili, which is 2, and cheese, which is 3. So spaghetti, chili, cheese, the three-way. Nothing to do with anything in the bedroom. Although it could. That would be interesting. Then you've got the 4-way, and there's 2 different types of 4-ways. You can do a 4-way where you add onion to the previous iteration, or you can add beans. And typically these are red kidney beans. So there's 2 different options for 4-ways, if that's the way you like to swing. And then if you just got to have everything, there's the 5-way, which is spaghetti, chili, onions, beans, and cheese. I'm more of a 4-way type of guy. I won't turn up my nose at a 5-way, and I won't turn up my nose at a 3-way either. But if I have the capability to do so, I will definitely add onion into the mix. So that's what I'm going to do now. And hopefully I can demonstrate this without causing any major embarrassment by cutting off a finger or part of a finger. And I'll peel off that last layer to get to the soft underbelly. And I don't like the thin layers, so if I can find a way to get one of those thin layers off, then I'll definitely go for it. All right. Now look, I'm no Guy Fieri, but I think I can cut up an onion. So the first thing I do is I cut it up sort of on the side, so I get a I believe that's a sagittal slice, and then I'll cut along the length of it this way. I use my finger as a guide, fingernail actually. And slice it, slice it. You don't want them super, you don't want the pieces of onion to be super small, but you don't want them big either. This is just about right in my opinion. That last end part is tough. And then I'll turn it this way, and then I'll just slice across it. About the same dimensions, and the little bits of it come falling off. And the multiple layers of the onion finish up the job for me. I'm not some kind of sadist who would completely overload my chili with onions, but I want to know that there's onions on it. So half an onion should be fine for that, and then I'll just store the rest. Sandwich bag, and we're good. 9 minutes. 9 minutes till we can vent. It's at this point that I feel compelled to say something about the matter of cheese. The type of cheese that's appropriate for Skyline is very specific. Mild cheddar cheese is the appropriate cheese. There are no deviations. You should not use mozzarella cheese. You should not use Parmesan cheese. As good as it might be, pepper jack cheese is a no-go. It's mild cheddar cheese or nothing. And there's a word about the preparation as well. So this is shredded mild cheddar cheese. This is actually still a little bit suboptimal. In an ideal world, this would be finely shredded, not just shredded. Finely shredded cheddar cheese to get it to the absolute perfect consistency for putting onto some Skyline chili. It is, I believe it's impossible to find commercially finely shredded cheddar cheese of the same length that you can find at Skyline. They actually, when I was working at Skyline, they had a custom cheese grater that was used every morning to grate the cheese. And it would produce just these long clumps of like little tiny strings of cheese, like little cheese silk pieces, basically. And I don't believe it's possible to find that commercially, but you can find finely shredded mild cheddar cheese. And if that is not available to you, as it is not available to me, just regular shredded mild cheddar cheese is fine. But you know, a lot of things about this process today are less than optimal, and I'm aware that I'm making compromises, and I'm coming to peace with that. But just so that you know, in the future, so that this lore is not lost to future generations. Okay, the water is now boiling. Got a nice little healthy activity there, as the molecules of water push against the molecules of air that are in the atmosphere, bearing down with approximately 1 atmosphere of pressure here, as we are in Texas, very close to sea level. And as that happens, the water reaches 100 degrees centigrade, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think we're ready to go. Okay, this is my first go around with this very fine Japanese somen noodles. They look a little bit less robust, perhaps, than angel hair pasta. And on any other day, it would be really interesting to me to give angel hair a try when it comes to how it compares with regular spaghetti. I actually don't know the spaghetti that's used at Skyline. I believe it's just standard spaghetti. It is perhaps a little bit thicker, maybe 10-15% thicker than the spaghetti I normally get at the store. But I don't believe I've ever had anything quite this thin. As you can see, it's rather, I mean, it's clearly pasta. Oh, and it comes, oh, this is interesting. It comes well, you know, it's Japanese. Masters of this. I'm assuming one bundle is one serving. I'm going to want this to try at least twice, so I'm going to put in one and then chase it with another and see how that goes. So it's only a few seconds in, the noodles are definitely starting to soften. Well, how long does it take? I mean, these are made of wheat, so it's essentially the same basic sort of substance as standard spaghetti, but I don't know about cooking time. We'll just let it sort of play out and see how that works. Ah, you hear that? That chili's done. All right, so the Instant Pot has finalized its cooking process, and it's now started a sort of a warm, keep warm. I'm going to turn that off, and then we're going to vent. And this is always a fun thing. I always do this at a distance because you see that little button? We put through all that energy to try to get him real excited, and he is. And then we need him to calm down. So, woo! Also sounded good cooking. Oh, and I can smell it. Oh, that smells like chili, boy. Oh yeah, this is close. This is real close. I mean, if the smell of the steam coming off of the Instant Pot is any indication, which I'm sure it is. Yeah, that smells like the steam table back at Skyline, for sure. Okay, not a lot of people know this either. There's one other kind of little trick about Skyline Chili. The spaghetti has a little tomato mixed in with it, so I'm going to take some of the remaining tomato paste and squeeze it into the spaghetti, and also I'm going to spray a little, I can't believe it's not butter, into it, and I'm going to mix it up, mix it all together, so that the pasta, maybe I shouldn't call it spaghetti, but the pasta has a nice coating and doesn't completely stick to itself. It's all clingy. Very clingy. There's no more steam venting out. Can I move it? I can move it. Oh! It fell down. Ooh. All right. Boy, that smells like chili to me. Now, the fat has clearly come up off of it. And there's a lot of recipes that I ran into where they say, oh yeah, you can take this opportunity to remove the fat. No thank you, mister. The fat is essential to the whole process. And there needs to be a certain amount to carry the flavor. Let's see here. It's probably hard to make out because of the steam rising up off of it, but this smells like chili to me. I'll let it cool down a little bit and give it a taste, and then we can adjust it further if anything I have available can improve it. So we'll see. I'm gonna let that calm down. Alrighty. I'm smelling it, and I'm smelling pretty much the same smell that I would smell at home if I was really making chili using their chili packet. So I'm gonna give it a taste. Let's see how this turns out. Up close and personal, it is quite accurate in appearance. the flavors are mostly there. Definitely not enough salt. I feel like there's some sweetness too that's left to be desired. Everything as a whole is kind of underwhelming. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and hit some of the spices again, toss in some supplemental stuff, and see what that does. First to go in, some of the foundational flavor, the chocolate goes in, and then the cinnamon, and I'm just going to whack it in there. All right. Next up, chili powder. It's been my experience generally when making chili that most of the recipes kind of underestimate the amount of chili powder that really does it properly, or maybe my sensibilities are just heightened when it comes to chili powder, and I need some more. I need much more in there than is typical. And you know what? I'm not going to shake it. I'm going to do this. I could always add more. I'm starting to feel nervous that I didn't maybe put enough minced onion. I wonder if maybe there's a reason why those other recipes wanted there to be onion. So we'll do this for now and see how this fares. Before I taste it again, though, definitely needs more saltiness. So I'm going to get a secret weapon. Lowry seasoned salt. Cannot say enough good about this stuff. I'm also starting to rethink the bit of macri I gave the other chili sauce, the Kroger stuff, because it had brown sugar in it, and mustard. So I might, I feel like there's something missing that might be sweetness, so I'm going to do that for a second. The amount of brown sugar that is a good amount is almost never enough, so I'm just going to put in a handful and a pinchful. Ooh, and it melts down like maple syrup. Let's get all that mixed in. Seasoned salt, brown sugar, and the chocolate. Hopefully that chocolate's dissolving in there. And I wonder to what extent also it's the fact that I didn't use beef stock, or I didn't have any beef stock to put in. And is the turkey like sucking all the flavor out of it? All these things I'm wondering right now. All right, taste number 2. That's closer. I think the sweetness is there. I don't think it needs any more. Still needs some saltiness. I'm almost out of this stuff. What am I going to do? Out of the seasoned salt. I don't typically think of Skyline Chili as salty, but you never really think of anything as really being salty. So you only really notice the salt when it's not there. Let's see if this improves it a little bit, then I know I'm at least going in the right direction. I think that got me there. It's definitely spicy enough. I don't want to put any cayenne or chili powder. There's a hole in there someplace and I can't figure out what's the hole. Maybe it is truly just the beef. I'm gonna hit it with some more cloves and garlic. Gotta fill in that flavor. There's a flavor hole that I'm missing. I cannot put my finger on it. What is it? It's really close. By smell alone, it's almost identical. It just needs to sit for a day in the fridge so the flavors congeal out of something, some magic. Oh, that's closer. Oh, I'm so close. All right, well, the only thing I can think of is more minced onion. I'll do that, but that's not an instant flavor solution. It takes a little while to. Onion is one of those things that absolves a multitude of sins. So from a purely visual standpoint, this is chili. This is Cincinnati Skyline Chili. Yeah, it might have broken up a little bit more finely than I would have wanted it to. Maybe beef would have been different. I'm wondering how much of this frustration is just due to the fact that I'm using turkey instead of beef. Let's see what it does. Yeah. I think that did it. I think I'm about 95% of the way to authentic. There aren't any obvious holes in the flavor that I can tell. Maybe it's one of those things where it's just a bunch of different additives. And again, I shouldn't be beating myself up so much because I am using turkey, and that is a significantly different flavor profile from that meat. So I'm going to consider this chili done. Alrighty. So I've got the pasta, such as it is, plated, and this would be about a plate's worth of chili. At Skyline, they use nice little elongated plates, which are fun. But we used what we had available. So at any rate, there's the pasta or spaghetti or whatever, and then I take the ladle of chili, and there's a particular technique to ladling out the chili. I don't know if I'll be able to show you exactly, but you sort of have to go zoop like that. Zoop. All the fanciest chili connoisseurs do that. All right, and then we will retire over here, and we'll put some onions on it. A healthy amount of onions. Healthier than that, yeah, that's good. Healthy. Again, I've got nobody coming over today, so this is totally fine. We'll open up the cheese. And at Skyline, the cheese that's prepared on the chili is piled up. Yeah, I can't get that high with this stuff because it's so solid. It's shredded, but it's not finely shredded. But I'm gonna try to do justice, and that's probably the same mass of cheese, just in a smaller volume. But there is a homemade from scratch 4-way. Now, I always have a couple of cheese conies with my spaghetti. So I'm going to set those up right here. I've got a couple hot dogs. They're going to get nuked. And there's a specific order that we have to follow as well. All right. So on the hot dogs goes yellow mustard. Put a nice, oh come on, thick line, get down there. Thick line of mustard down one side, not both. And then we'll ladle on the chili. And this is a bit of a technique too. In order to get the chili to stay in there, just sort of pinch the ends a little bit. You have to really radically do this if you're making chili sandwiches, but for our purposes. And you definitely don't want a full ladle, because you got to get just enough to go across, and just enough to go across. All right. Alright, and we're coming back to the onion station. Onions, onions, onions. And then cheese. And I'll be very liberal with the amount of cheese that goes on top of these guys. In this instance, not having the finely shredded stuff isn't such a big deal, because I would typically, even if I was getting them in a Skyline proper, I would typically let these sit and the cheese melt for quite some period of time, because the melted cheese on top of the coney, in my mind, is sort of the ideal situation. It kind of, for me, it goes back to when I was a kid. My grandfather, on my dad's side, would run out sometimes when all the cousins were at the house and just get like 50 conies. And it would take so long to go down to the chili shop, get the conies, and come back, that by the time the cheese conies were being apportioned out, all the cheese had melted completely. And so a fully melted cheese coney that's actually kind of lukewarm is sort of my platonic ideal for the food stuff. So I will go to lengths to melt the cheese if I need to. Okay, now the moment of truth. How does this actually hold up? So I'm looking at my 4-way, and it looks like the chili it's going around the pasta pretty well. I like to twirl it up, try to get, I mean, honestly, if these noodles were a little bit thicker, I would be fooled. Oh yeah. With the onions and the cheese, that definitely helps it. It's at least recognizable as not being anything else. I couldn't pass this off as being like Texas chili or anything like that. It's got that definite particular flavor profile. But I'd love to try this again with beef and proper spaghetti. That's good. Now the cheese coney. As you can see, the cheese reasonably melted out. And congealing. So on the hot side and the inside. Yeah, that's an even better experience. It's hard to go wrong with melted cheese though. And mustard. Yeah, it's all doing it for me. I'll let that cool down. All right, well, there you have it. Skyline chili in a pinch with less than ideal ingredients, but still we made the most of it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Cincinnati style apocalypse. Take care. Bye.